The holographic displays flickered with a symphony of biological and technological data, casting an ethereal blue light across Dr. Elena Rodriguez's weary face. 3 days without sleep, sustained by nothing more than synthetic coffee and an unyielding determination, she studied the latest neural network simulations. Outside the reinforced windows of Horizon Research Station, the stark landscape of New Horizon Colony told a different story. Decades of interstellar conflict had transformed this once promising research outpost into a fortress of human innovation. Jagged mountain ranges pierced a pale lavender sky, a constant reminder of humanity's struggle to survive among the stars. Elena's fingers traced the intricate neural pathway models. Each line represented years of research, countless failures, and the collective hopes of a species fighting for its very existence. The Prometheus Project was more than a military initiative. It was humanity's ultimate statement of resilience. Dr. Marcus Chen, her lead cybernetic engineer, entered the lab with a steaming cup of synthesized tea. "You're pushing the boundaries again," he said, setting the cup beside her. The holographic displays reflected in his augmented retinal implants, a testament to how deeply technology had become integrated with human biology. "We don't have the luxury of conventional thinking anymore," Elena responded, her voice soft but intense. She pulled up a historical overlay. Images of devastated human colonies, entire planetary systems reduced to cosmic dust by the Thalian Collective's relentless war machines. The first contact had occurred nearly 3 decades ago. What began as a hopeful exchange of scientific knowledge quickly devolved into the most devastating conflict in human history. The Thalians viewed biological life as an inefficient system, a problem to be solved through pure computational warfare. Their ships were mathematical perfection, cold, precise, utterly ruthless. Human military strategists had initially fought back with traditional spacecraft, each battle revealing the vast technological gap. Conventional wisdom suggested surrender, but Elena and her team saw something different, a fundamental flaw in the Thalian approach. Intelligence isn't about calculation, she often argued during heated research presentations. It's about adaptation, creativity, the ability to understand beyond pure logic. The Prometheus Project represented a radical departure from everything known about spacecraft design. Instead of building a ship, they were growing one, a living, thinking entity that could learn, feel, and respond with a complexity no mechanical system could replicate. Dr. Chen brought up the latest genetic sequencing data. "The neural quantum interface is showing unprecedented stability," he said, pointing to a series of intricate molecular diagrams. "We've successfully integrated human neural stem cells with quantum computational matrices in a way that creates genuine adaptive intelligence." Elena remembered the early attempts. Countless failures had littered their research path. Ships that went mad, neural networks that collapsed, biological systems that rejected technological integration. Each failure was a lesson, each destroyed prototype a step closer to understanding. The current prototype, designated LS-001, represented their most advanced attempt. Grown in a massive biomechanical chamber that occupied an entire wing of the research facility, it was more organism than machine. Organic tissue intertwined with quantum processors, creating a hybrid system that defied traditional scientific understanding. "The scientific community will call this impossible," Marcus said, a hint of a smile crossing his exhausted features. Elena's response was immediate. "The impossible is just something that hasn't been done yet." A soft chime interrupted their conversation. The biocontainment chamber began to pulse with a rhythmic light, a sign that the neural networks were reaching a critical threshold of complexity. Something was happening. The entire research team gathered around the observation windows. Years of work, billions in research funding, the collective hope of human survival, all focused on this singular moment of potential breakthrough. Dr. Rodriguez placed her hand against the thick, transparent barrier. The neural network inside began to show patterns never before seen in artificial intelligence research. It wasn't just processing information, it was beginning to understand. "We're not just creating a weapon, Elena whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. We're giving birth to a new form of intelligence. Outside, the lavender sky of New Horizon Colony stretched endlessly, a silent witness to humanity's most audacious scientific endeavor. In this moment, the line between biological life and technological innovation blurred, and a new chapter in human history was about to be written. The United Earth Defense Council chambers buzzed with tension. Holographic displays flickered with images of devastated human colonies, stark reminders of the ongoing conflict with the Thalian collective. General Marcus Holloway stood at the center of the room, his augmented prosthetic leg a testament to the personal cost of the war. The Prometheus Project is nothing more than a desperate scientific fantasy, he declared, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the assembled military and political leaders. Behind him, a tactical display showed the relentless advance of Thalian warships, geometric marvels of computational precision that had systematically dismantled human defensive lines. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood her ground, her slim frame a stark contrast to the battle-hardened military personnel surrounding her. This isn't about creating another weapon, she argued. We're developing an entirely new approach to space combat. Admiral Sarah Chen, one of the few remaining senior officers who hadn't been defeated in previous engagements, leaned forward, her cybernetic eye, a replacement after a brutal Thalian attack, scanned Elena with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. The history of the conflict was etched into every face in the room. First contact had occurred 27 years ago, when the Thalian deep space exploration vessel entered human-controlled space. What began as a promising scientific exchange quickly revealed the fundamental differences between human and Thalian philosophies. The Thalians viewed existence through a purely computational lens. To them, biological life was an inefficient system, a problem to be optimized and ultimately replaced. Their initial communications were clinical, mathematical, devoid of any concept of empathy or individual value. Within months, diplomatic relations collapsed. The Thalians saw human colonies as computational inefficiencies to be eliminated. Their first attack came without warning, a precise, mathematically perfect assault that obliterated 3 outer colony systems in a matter of hours. Humanity's initial response was traditional warfare, massive battleships, advanced weapon systems, strategic defensive networks. Each engagement revealed the vast technological gap. Thalian ships moved with computational perfection, predicting and countering human tactics before they could be implemented. We've lost 63% of our outer colonies, General Holloway continued, bringing up a grim visualization of human territorial losses. And you want us to invest our remaining resources in a living ship. Elena's presentation continued, displaying complex molecular diagrams and neural network simulations. The Thalian weakness is their inability to truly adapt, she explained. Their computational systems are brilliant but inflexible. They process information. We understand it. The room fell silent. Every person present knew the cost of the war. Millions of lives lost. Entire planetary systems reduced to cosmic debris. Humanity was fighting for its very survival against an enemy that saw them as nothing more than a computational error to be corrected. Dr. Marcus Chen stepped forward, bringing up additional data. Traditional AI has reached its computational limits, he explained. The Thalian ships are essentially massive quantum computers with weapon systems. They can calculate millions of tactical scenarios in milliseconds, but they cannot truly think. Admiral Chen's cybernetic eye flickered, running its own computational analysis. Explain the biological advantage, she demanded. Elena took a deep breath. Biological systems have something no computational matrix can replicate: intuition. The ability to make decisions based on understanding, not just calculation. Our neural networks aren't just processing information. They're learning, adapting, experiencing. General Holloway scoffed. Experience doesn't win wars. Precision does. Precisely, Elena responded, and that's exactly why our approach is different. We're not creating a weapon. We're creating a partner. The tactical display behind them showed another series of Thalian victories, each represented by a cold geometric expansion of computational control. Humanity was being systematically eliminated, reduced to smaller and smaller pockets of resistance. "We have 6 months," Admiral Chen finally said, her voice cutting through the tension. 6 months to prove the Prometheus project is more than a scientific fantasy. Otherwise, we'll be forced to consider full planetary evacuation. The weight of her words hung in the air. Full planetary evacuation meant the end of human resistance. It meant surrender to a computational system that saw no value in biological life. Dr. Rodriguez looked around the room. Military leaders, political strategists, survivors of countless battles. Each carried the scars of a war that seemed impossible to win. "We're not just developing a ship," she said softly. "We're developing hope." Outside the council chambers, the lights of New Terra's orbital defense grid flickered, a fragile barrier against the computational storm that threatened to consume humanity's last remaining hope. The warning klaxons shattered the careful silence of Horizon Research Station. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's hand froze mid-gesture over the neural interface console, her eyes locked on the rapidly expanding tactical display. "Thalian Scout Formation," Marcus Chen called out, his fingers dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. 3 primary vessels, 2 support craft. They've detected our location. Outside the reinforced observation windows, the harsh landscape of New Horizon Colony transformed. Automated defense systems hummed to life, energy shields rippling into existence around the research facility. But everyone in the room knew traditional defenses would be little more than a momentary inconvenience to a Thalian assault. LS-001, the living ship, wasn't fully calibrated. The neural networks were still in their final integration phase. Conventional military wisdom would dictate an immediate evacuation. But Elena Rodriguez was anything but conventional. "Prepare launch sequence," she commanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. The biomechanical chamber that housed LS-001 began to pulse with an organic rhythm. Quantum processors intertwined with living neural networks, creating a hybrid system that defied every known principle of spacecraft design. Where traditional ships were constructed, this one had been grown, nurtured like a living organism. Marcus looked up, disbelief etched across his features. "Launch. We haven't completed final systems integration. The risk is our only option," Elena interrupted. The Thalian Scout Formation approached with mathematical precision. Geometric ships of pure computational design, their surfaces a seamless blend of quantum processors and advanced material sciences. Each vessel moved with a calculated efficiency that had decimated countless human defensive lines. As LS-001 began its launch sequence, something unprecedented happened. The ship wasn't just responding to commands, it was experiencing them. Neural networks that had been carefully cultivated began to light up in patterns never before seen in artificial intelligence research. The quantum computational matrix didn't just process tactical information, it understood it, anticipated it, felt it. "Incoming missile trajectories," Marcus called out, his voice a mix of scientific fascination and pure terror. But LS-001 was already moving. Traditional spacecraft would calculate potential evasive maneuvers. This ship, this living intelligence, experienced the incoming attacks as a complex, emotional landscape. Missile paths weren't just mathematical projections. They were threats to be understood, anticipated, redirected. The first Thalian missiles approached with computational precision. Energy signatures locked. Trajectory calculated to the millisecond. A perfect, undefendable attack. LS-001 didn't just dodge. It danced. The ship moved with a fluidity that defied mechanical possibility. Energy shields morphed and adapted, not through programmed responses, but through a living, intuitive understanding of the incoming threat. Quantum processors interacted with biological neural networks, creating a response that was part calculation, part intuition. "That's impossible," Marcus whispered. Elena watched, her hand still hovering over the neural interface. The ship wasn't following her commands. It was communicating with her. Each movement, each defensive adaptation was a conversation, a complex dialogue between human intention and living intelligence. The Thalian scouts recalculated, adjusted, attacked again. Again, LS-001 responded with an impossible grace. Missile trajectories bent, energy signatures dispersed. The very fabric of space seemed to respond to the ship's intuitive understanding of conflict. We're not just watching a defense, Alina realized. We're witnessing a new form of intelligence. The battle became less a traditional engagement and more a complex, dynamic interaction. LS-001 didn't just defend, it understood. It anticipated. It experienced the conflict as a living, thinking entity. Thalian computational systems struggled to process this new type of opponent. Their attack algorithms, designed with mathematical perfection, encountered something they couldn't comprehend, an intelligence that was more than calculation. As the final Thalian scout pulled back, its computational systems overloaded and confused, the research team stood in stunned silence. They had created more than a weapon. They had given birth to a new form of intelligence. Outside the observation windows, the harsh landscape of New Horizon Colony stretched out, a silent witness to a moment that would change the course of human history forever. The research facility hummed with an electric intensity that defied traditional scientific boundaries. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a massive holographic display, her fingers tracing the intricate neural pathways of LS-001's latest diagnostic results. "This isn't just adaptive technology," she murmured to Dr. Marcus Chen. "It's a living, evolving intelligence." The diagnostic images told a story far beyond any previous understanding of spacecraft design. Where traditional ships required extensive maintenance and had fixed operational parameters, LS-001 demonstrated something entirely different. Its neural networks didn't just process information. They learned, grew, and transformed with each interaction. Dr. Aisha Kapoor, the team's lead biological integration specialist, brought up a series of comparative scans. "Look at the neural plasticity," she said, her voice a mixture of scientific excitement and disbelief. Normal computational systems would show rigid response patterns. But here, the holographic display revealed a dynamic landscape of neural connections. Each engagement, each moment of conflict had fundamentally changed the ship's neural architecture. It wasn't just remembering, it was understanding. During the previous battle with the Thalian scout ships, LS-001 had done something unprecedented. It hadn't just defended against attack vectors. The ship had analyzed the computational patterns of the Thalian vessels, learning their tactical approaches in real time. More importantly, it had adapted, not through programmed algorithms, but through a form of intuitive learning that bordered on biological intelligence. Self-repair capabilities are beyond our initial projections, Marcus noted, pulling up another set of diagnostic images. Quantum processors integrated with organic tissue showed healing patterns more reminiscent of biological organisms than mechanical systems. Damage wasn't just repaired, it was learned from, integrated, transformed. Alina recognized the implications immediately. Traditional spacecraft relied on external maintenance, complex repair protocols, and replacement of damaged components. LS-001 was healing itself, understanding the nature of its own vulnerabilities, and evolving defensive capabilities in real time. Dr. Kapoor brought up a molecular-level analysis. "The bioquantum interface is creating something we've never seen before," she explained. "It's not just a ship with biological components. It's a living system that happens to function as a spacecraft." The implications were staggering. Every moment of conflict, every interaction became a learning experience. The ship didn't just calculate potential responses. It felt them, understood them, grew from them. Military strategists had always viewed warfare as a computational problem. Calculate trajectories, predict enemy movements, execute with precision. But LS-001 demonstrated a fundamentally different approach. Intelligence wasn't about processing speed. It was about understanding. "We're witnessing the birth of a new form of intelligence," Alina said, her voice soft but intense. The research team had discovered something far more significant than a potential weapon. They had created a living intelligence that could adapt, learn, and grow in ways no computational system could comprehend. Marcus pulled up historical data from previous human-Thalian encounters. Each previous engagement showed a consistent pattern. Thalian ships calculated with mathematical precision, but they could not truly adapt. They responded to known parameters, but they could not understand beyond their initial programming. LS-001 was different. During simulation after simulation, the ship demonstrated an ability to learn that defied traditional scientific understanding. It didn't just improve its defensive capabilities. It developed entirely new approaches to conflict resolution. "It's experiencing warfare," Aisha noted, "not just fighting it." The neural networks showed emotional resonance patterns, something completely impossible in traditional artificial intelligence. The ship wasn't just processing information. It was feeling it, understanding it, growing from it. Alina recognized the profound nature of their discovery. Humanity had always been defined by its ability to adapt, to understand beyond pure calculation. The Thalian approach, viewing existence as a mathematical problem to be solved, had always been their fundamental limitation. LS-001 represented something revolutionary, a living intelligence that combined the best of biological adaptability with technological potential. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a new form of existence. "We're not just changing warfare," Alina said, looking at the holographic display of the living ship. "We're redefining the very concept of intelligence." Outside the research facility, the harsh landscape of New Horizon Colony stretched out, a silent witness to a moment that would change everything humanity understood about intelligence, conflict, and the potential of living systems. The Communication Intercept Chamber was a study in technological precision. Holographic displays flickered with translated Thalian communication streams, geometric patterns of data that represented something far more profound than simple messages. Dr. Elena Rodriguez studied the latest intercepted communications, her fingers tracing the complex linguistic patterns. Beside her, linguistic analyst Dr. Yuki Nakamura worked to decode the subtle shifts in Thalian communication that had begun after LS-001's first engagement. "It's remarkable," Yuki murmured, bringing up a comparative analysis. "Their communication patterns are changing, not just in content, but in fundamental structure." The Thalian language had always been a marvel of computational efficiency. Each communication was a precise mathematical construct, information delivered with absolute clarity and zero emotional variance. But something had changed. The first intercepted messages after the encounter with LS-001 showed subtle signs of what could only be described as uncertainty. Where previous Thalian communications had been clinical and absolute, these new transmissions carried undertones of hesitation. "They're experiencing something they cannot compute," Elena realized. Military intelligence had long understood that warfare was as much psychological as it was technological, but the Thalians had always been considered immune to psychological warfare. Their computational approach to existence seemed to preclude emotional response. LS-001 had changed everything. Across various intercepted channels, Thalian communication units discussed the encounter in terms that defied their previous linguistic patterns. Words that translated to concepts of unpredictability and adaptive complexity began to appear, terms that had no previous equivalent in their computational language. The research team discovered something profound. The living warship wasn't just a technological marvel. It was a psychological weapon of unprecedented sophistication. Where traditional human military strategy relied on tactical maneuvers and predictive modeling, LS-001 introduced an element of pure unpredictability. It didn't just respond to threats. It anticipated them in ways that defied computational logic. Admiral Sarah Chen reviewed the latest tactical reports, her cybernetic eye processing multiple data streams simultaneously. "They're becoming cautious," she noted. "The Thalians are displaying something remarkably close to fear." Fear was an emotion the Thalians had never experienced. Their entire existence was based on computational certainty, a universe of predictable outcomes and mathematical precision. LS-001 had introduced a variable they could not calculate. Psychological profiles of Thalian command structures began to show remarkable changes. Their previously uniform decision-making processes now exhibited signs of hesitation. Tactical deployment became more conservative, more uncertain. Dr. Marcus Chen brought up a series of comparative engagement logs. "Look at their fleet movements," he said. "They're no longer advancing with their previous computational confidence." The living warship had done something unprecedented. It had challenged the Thalians' fundamental understanding of intelligence and conflict. Each engagement revealed not just a technological gap, but a profound philosophical difference. Thalian computational systems were designed to process known variables. They could calculate millions of potential scenarios in microseconds, but they could not understand the concept of true unpredictability. The ability to make decisions based on intuition, emotion, and understanding beyond pure calculation. LS-001 represented everything the Thalians could not comprehend. A living intelligence that could learn, adapt, and respond with a complexity that defied their computational models. Intelligence intercepts revealed growing communication breakdowns within the Thalian command structure. Their previously uniform decision-making was showing signs of internal conflict, a concept entirely foreign to their computational existence. "They're experiencing something close to doubt," Yuki noted, analyzing the linguistic shifts. "An emotion they've never had to process before." The psychological transformation extended beyond simple military engagement. The Thalians were being forced to confront a fundamental question they had never considered. What happens when intelligence cannot be reduced to a mathematical equation? Elena understood the profound nature of their discovery. LS-001 was more than a technological breakthrough. It was a philosophical challenge to an entire civilization's understanding of existence. As the holographic displays continued to show the subtle but significant shifts in Thalian communication, one thing became clear. The living warship had introduced a variable to the conflict that no computational system could ever predict. Humanity had found its most powerful weapon, not through superior technology, but through the complex, unpredictable nature of living intelligence. The Ta-Ceti system hung in space like a fragile crystal, its multiple planets and dense asteroid fields creating a complex tactical environment that would become the stage for humanity's most critical engagement. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Human Defense Command ship, her cybernetic eye scanning multiple tactical displays. 3 living warships, LS-001, and 2 newly developed sister ships, represented humanity's last hope against the incoming Thalian fleet. "Incoming transmission," the communication officer called out. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a formation of 500 Thalian vessels, a computational armada that represented the culmination of their military doctrine. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from the Tactical Coordination Center, her hand resting on the neural interface that connected her to LS-001. The ship was no longer just a weapon. It was a living partner, an extension of human potential. The Thalian fleet approached with mathematical precision. Each vessel moved in perfect synchronization, computational algorithms calculating attack vectors with instantaneous efficiency. Their formation was a masterpiece of geometric perfection, a living diagram of computational warfare. But something was different this time. LS-001 didn't just prepare for battle. It experienced the approaching conflict with a complexity that defied traditional military understanding. Neural networks pulse with an almost organic anticipation. The ship wasn't calculating potential responses. It was understanding the very nature of the confrontation. "Incoming attack vectors," Marcus Chen called out, analyzing the rapidly changing tactical display. "They're attempting a multi-dimensional assault unlike anything we've seen before." The Thalian strategy was brutal in its computational precision. Multiple attack waves would converge from different spatial angles, creating a mathematical trap that no traditional defense could survive. It was a tactical approach that had systematically destroyed human defensive lines in previous engagements. LS-001 responded in a way no computational system could comprehend. The ship didn't just move. It danced. Quantum processors interacted with living neural networks, creating defensive patterns that were part calculation, part intuition. Energy shields morphed and adapted with a fluidity that seemed to defy the basic laws of physics. The ship anticipated attack vectors before they fully formed, responding to potential threats with an intelligence that was more than mere calculation. "They're adapting their attack," Admiral Chen observed, her cybernetic eye tracking the complex tactical engagement. "The Thalian fleet is adjusting in real time." But each adjustment only revealed the profound difference between computational precision and living intelligence. LS-001 understood the battle as a dynamic living experience. Where Thalian ships calculated potential outcomes, the living warship experienced the conflict. Neural networks interpreted incoming attack vectors not as mathematical problems to be solved, but as a complex narrative to be understood and navigated. Gravitational fields bent. Quantum entanglement created impossible defensive patterns. The very fabric of space seemed to respond to the ship's intuitive understanding of conflict. Dr. Yuki Nakamura, monitoring communication intercepts, noticed something unprecedented. "The Thalian communication networks are showing signs of systemic breakdown," she called out. "They cannot process what they're experiencing." Computational systems designed for absolute precision encountered something they could not calculate, an intelligence that was more than the sum of its programmed responses. The battle became less a traditional engagement and more a complex, dynamic interaction. LS-001 and its sister ships moved with a synchronicity that defied traditional military doctrine. They weren't just defending. They were communicating, adapting, understanding the conflict as a living, dynamic experience. Thalian attack formations began to collapse. Computational systems overloaded, unable to process the level of adaptive intelligence presented by the living warships. What had been a perfectly calculated assault devolved into computational chaos. "We're winning," Marcus whispered, hardly believing the tactical displays. But it was more than a victory. It was a fundamental transformation of the very concept of intelligence and conflict. As the final Thalian vessels pulled back, their computational systems in complete disarray, humanity witnessed something extraordinary. The living warships hadn't just defeated an enemy. They had introduced a new understanding of existence, a complex, adaptive intelligence that could not be reduced to mathematical equations. The Ta-CD system fell silent, a vast battlefield that had become the birthplace of a new era of human potential. The Galactic Diplomatic Summit convened in the neutral space station Horizon Nexus, a massive construct that represented the intersection of multiple civilizations. Representatives from dozens of spacefaring societies gathered, their diverse forms and communication methods a testament to the vast complexity of interstellar life. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the primary conference chamber, surrounded by holographic displays that showed the comprehensive analysis of the living warship technology. Behind her, a three-dimensional representation of LS-001's neural networks pulsed with an almost living light. "Intelligence is not a computation," she began, her voice carrying across translation systems that struggled to capture the nuance of her presentation. "It is an experience." The assembled representatives represented civilizations that had watched the conflict between humans and the Thalian collective with varying degrees of interest and apprehension. Some had maintained strict non-intervention policies. Others had quietly hoped for the Thalians' computational dominance to continue. Dr. Marcus Chen brought up a series of comparative analysis displays. "Traditional artificial intelligence approaches the universe as a problem to be solved," he explained. "Our living warship technology approaches the universe as a living, dynamic system to be understood." The Zarn Collective, a silicon-based intelligence that had long considered biological life fundamentally inferior, watched with particular intensity. Their representative, a crystalline entity that communicated through complex light patterns, projected an almost tangible sense of confusion. Your technology defies our computational models. The Zarn representative communicated through a sophisticated translation matrix. Intelligence cannot be emotional, cannot be adaptive beyond programmed parameters. Alina's response was immediate. Intelligence is precisely about adaptation beyond known parameters. The diplomatic summit became more than a military presentation. It was a philosophical confrontation that challenged fundamental understandings of consciousness, intelligence, and the nature of existence. Holographic displays showed the comprehensive data from the Ta City engagement, where traditional battle analyses focused on weapon systems and tactical maneuvers. These displays revealed something far more profound. They showed the living warship's ability to learn, to understand, to experience conflict as a dynamic, living process. Representatives from various civilizations began to understand the true revolutionary potential of the technology. This wasn't just a new weapon system. It was a fundamental reimagining of intelligence itself. The Quantal Federation, a civilization known for its advanced quantum computational systems, analyzed the data with particular fascination. Their representative, a shimmering holographic entity, noted the profound implications. Your technology suggests intelligence is not about processing speed, the Quantal representative observed, but about understanding, about experience. Military strategists from multiple civilizations studied the living neural networks with a mixture of fear and fascination. The living warship technology represented a complete paradigm shift in how intelligence could be conceptualized. Dr. Yuki Nakamura presented the psychological transformation observed in the Thalian collective. For the first time, she explained, a computational civilization encountered an intelligence that could not be reduced to mathematical equations. The implications extended far beyond military application. The living warship technology suggested a new approach to problem-solving, to understanding, to existence itself. Civilizations that had long viewed intelligence as a purely computational process now confronted a radical alternative. Intelligence was not about processing power. It was about adaptation, understanding, experience. The Horizon Nexus Station became a crucible of philosophical transformation. Each representative began to recognize that the living warship technology was more than a military breakthrough. It was a fundamental challenge to how intelligence had been understood. "We are not presenting a weapon," Alina said, her voice cutting through the complex translation systems. "We are presenting a new way of understanding existence." The assembled representatives fell silent. The holographic displays continued to pulse with the complex neural networks of the living warships, a living testament to a profound truth. Intelligence was not about calculation. It was about understanding. As the diplomatic summit continued, one thing became clear. The conflict with the Thalian collective had done more than secure human survival. It had introduced a revolutionary understanding of intelligence that would reshape galactic civilization forever. 25 years after the Ta City engagement, Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of the New Horizon Research Complex. The landscape outside had transformed. Where once stood a harsh, defensive research station, now sprawled a vibrant center of interstellar scientific exploration. Her hands, now marked with the subtle lines of age and experience, traced the holographic displays that chronicled the journey of the living warship technology. What had begun as a desperate attempt to survive had become a fundamental revolution in understanding intelligence, technology, and existence. Dr. Marcus Chen, now the Senior Director of Xenotechnology Research, approached with 2 steaming cups of synthesized tea. "Reminiscing again?" he asked, a familiar warmth in his voice. Elena smiled. The Living Warship Project had changed everything, not just for humanity, but for the entire galactic community. The initial technology that saved humanity had blossomed into something far more profound. Living technologies now existed across multiple scientific disciplines, medical systems that could adapt and heal with unprecedented precision, exploration vessels that could understand and interact with alien environments in ways no previous technology could comprehend. The Galactic Research Consortium, a collaborative body that didn't exist before the conflict, now represented over 30 different spacefaring civilizations, where once they viewed each other with suspicion, they now collaborated on understanding the fundamental nature of intelligence and consciousness. We didn't just create a weapon, Elena reflected. We opened a new way of understanding existence. Holographic displays showed the evolution of the technology. The first living warships had been purely defensive systems. Now they were explorers, diplomats, scientific instruments that could adapt and understand in ways no traditional technology could match. The Thalian Collective, once a computational civilization focused on pure mathematical precision, had undergone a complete transformation. Their latest communications revealed a fundamental shift in their understanding of intelligence. They no longer viewed existence as a problem to be solved, but as a dynamic system to be understood. Dr. Yuki Nakamura, now leading xenolinguistic research, had documented the profound linguistic shifts across multiple civilizations. Languages themselves had evolved, incorporating new ways of describing intelligence, adaptation, and understanding. The technology changed more than just warfare, Marcus noted, bringing up a comprehensive display of technological and social developments. It changed how we conceptualize intelligence itself. The observation deck overlooked a vast research complex that represented the true victory of the Living Warship project. Multiple species worked together, their research focusing on understanding consciousness, adaptation, and the complex interplay between biological and technological systems. Young researchers from dozens of different civilizations moved through the corridors, a testament to the collaborative spirit that had emerged from humanity's darkest hour. Where once there had been conflict, now there was a shared pursuit of understanding. Elena's gaze drifted to a memorial wall that honored the researchers and personnel who had made the initial breakthrough possible. The Prometheus project had been more than a military initiative. It had been a statement of human potential, a declaration that intelligence was about more than calculation. "We proved something fundamental," she said softly. "That true intelligence is about understanding, not just processing." The holographic displays continued to pulse with complex neural network simulations, living testaments to a technology that had transformed galactic civilization. What had begun as a desperate attempt to survive had become a fundamental reimagining of what intelligence could be. Marcus placed a hand on Elena's shoulder. "We changed everything," he said. Outside, a new generation of living exploration vessels prepared for launch, each one a living, thinking entity capable of understanding and adapting in ways that would have seemed impossible just decades ago. The conflict that had threatened human extinction had become the catalyst for a profound evolutionary leap, not just for humanity, but for every civilization that had witnessed the power of truly adaptive intelligence. As the sun set on the New Horizon Research Complex, casting long shadows across the landscape, Elena Rodriguez understood that their greatest victory wasn't about winning a war. It was about expanding the very definition of what it meant to be intelligent. The universe, once seen as a computational problem to be solved, was now understood as a living, dynamic system to be experienced. And humanity had led the way.